thinking, how do you introduce a company like Facebook to a group of tech-savvy digital entrepreneurs, fashion tech entrepreneurs, VC people? I mean, everybody already knows Facebook. And then I thought, well, perhaps it's worth just taking a look back over the past 12 months or so, and just thinking about the ride that Facebook has been on over the past few years. And then I thought, well, instead of making a whole bunch of boring PowerPoint slides, it might be kind of fun to use a timeline. And then I thought, oh, well, Facebook actually has a timeline. So I created a little Facebook page here, just chronicling a few of the key moments that happened this year with Facebook, just to refresh all of our memories. Back in April, I think April 10th, the world was surprised at the announcement of the 100% acquisition of Instagram by Facebook. At the time, it was valued at something like $1 billion. I mean, subsequent to that, I think the valuation's gone down to something like $700 million. But that was obviously a key moment for Facebook this year. It was a entry into this rapidly growing mobile social network based on images, which had become a key part of the Facebook platform. And then, of course, about a month later, there was this widely anticipated IPO, valuing the business at $104 billion, at the higher end of the range that had been expected by analysts. And there's Mark Zuckerberg looking very happy with his team as they welcome in the acquisition. Unfortunately, his face kind of changed a few months later as the Facebook valuation dropped to less than 50% of its original IPO value. A lot of the reaction from the markets was that Facebook had not actively thought about its mobile strategy, and that while there had been some momentum with the web platform in terms of monetization and advertising, there wasn't anything really that was being done on mobile, and actually a lot of people are using Facebook on mobile. So analysts began to punish Facebook for that, and then so did investors. And the stock plummeted over the next few months to less than 50% of its original valuation, as I said. But there were some other high moments. On October 5th this year, Facebook reached the frankly staggering figure of 1 billion active users on the platform. I remember participating in a conference not so different from this at Harvard Business School about 5 or 6 years ago, and at the time there were 20 million users on Facebook. So it's kind of incredible to think about the momentum of this platform and how it's really injected itself into all of our daily lives. And then also, in the last month or so, the Facebook stock has bounced back somewhat, because the latest quarterly results suggested that Facebook was actually having some momentum in the sphere of mobile, and actually mobile advertising was a lot higher than people had expected. So, as we think about this incredible tool and how it's changed all our lives, and in particular how that tool affects all of us working in the fashion and luxury sector, I'm really pleased to introduce Tracy Ybon, who's agreed to sit down with me and chat about Facebook, fashion, and luxury. So let's welcome Tracy. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to pull up my handy-dandy questions here. Tracy, perhaps at first thing is it's worth your just introducing a little bit about your role at Facebook. So I know a lot of people in this room are active users of Facebook as a tool.
Yeah.
But it'd be good to know how how you use Facebook and what your role is at Facebook.
Sure. So I've been with Facebook for quite a long time in Facebook years. I've been there almost 5 years at the company. I was actually employee number 5 outside the US. So I came over to set up our first international office. And over that 5 years, I've done many different things, set up our international teams, participated in opening offices in emerging markets, running sales teams, and very recently I moved into the area of business partnerships, focused on helping key verticals. So the vertical I'm focused on helping is the retail with a skew to fashion and luxury. The reason we decided to kind of create a space to focus on that particular industry was that we were seeing huge growth in terms of engagement with users around luxury products, fashion brands, and retail in particular. So much so that the demand coming in was pretty high. There's not very many of us. We have 1 billion users, but we've less than 4,000 employees globally. So there's not that many of us. So to try and deal with the demand and work with some of our key partners in the space and help them with their social strategies, I took the lead in that role.
Okay. It's a really interesting signal from Facebook that they've got a dedicated person like you focusing on fashion and luxury. I guess my first question, and it's actually the question that gets asked to me over and over again as I sit down with CEOs and business leaders in the fashion and luxury community, which is, are my users, my luxury fashion consumers, are they really on Facebook? And this question, I think we're 5 years into this, 5 or 6 years into this digital revolution that's transforming the industry that has this whole room here packed. But there's still this pervading question, which is the high net worth individual is not an active user of Facebook, and that's probably the first myth that I'd like you to dispel for me.
Yeah, we get asked that a lot. So we see this huge engagement, and we have large brands saying, yeah, we know it's big, we know it maps to the general population, we understand all of that, we see the figures from Comscore, but are my customers there? And if they're there, what are they doing?
Right.
So obviously we have a lot of information, a lot of data about our users, of which we do not share, except in aggregate. So what we decided to do very recently this year is commission a study into affluence and high net worth individuals in social with a skew to Facebook, because we wanted to understand what they were doing in the social space as well as Facebook. So we partnered with EMS, which are an Ipsos company, and Sparkler. And those of you that know what EMS do, it's a study that basically surveys the top 20% of income earners in all European markets. So that's about 25 European markets. So they have a survey and they look at just consumption behavior of media. So that data, and we asked them to run that data across multiple digital platforms. And then we partnered with an agency called Sparkler, who are a research agency who do these amazing infographics. You see them in lots of magazines like Wired and stuff like that. To have a look into this audience, what they were doing in social, obviously opening up some of the information that we have as well. And what we saw was really interesting, actually. We were very surprised by some of the behaviors. The first thing was around time spent in consumption. What we were seeing is that this high net worth individual, or this affluent audience, were spending a disproportionate amount of time in social networks.
And disproportionate to a regular user, or disproportionate to other media?
Disproportionate to other media. So the traditional channels that a marketer would generally use to target a high net worth individual, we were seeing Facebook indexing higher against those channels. So the CNNs, the Economists, the Newsweeks of this world, where you would generally try and target a high net worth individual, they were spending proportionately more time on Facebook.
And any reason, did the reason for why that was in the survey?
So we saw that they were there, and we saw that they were engaged and spending time there. But we want to try and understand what they were doing there.
Yeah.
So to do that, they had to do an element of audience segmentation, because a high net worth individual can be, someone that's retired to someone that's just graduated, or to an entrepreneur. They all look very different. And depending by which market, this is a European-wide study. I should caveat that the study is not being released until the 20th of November, so I'm sharing some preview of the information with you all today. So it's fine. So I can't share everything because I'll get in trouble because we're launching on the 20th of November. But what we saw was by each segment, the behaviors are very different. So one of the segments that I was very interested in particular, because I get this question a lot from luxury auto brands and finance brands, was something they were calling the C-suite or the business traveler, and they make up about 13% of that audience. And we saw that they were very heavy users of social networks, but they use social networks in different ways. They keep their personal life and their business life very separate. So they would use LinkedIn, for example, a lot, or Bloomberg for work. And then they were using channels like Facebook to talk with their family as they were traveling in downtime and on their mobile, on the go. Like instant messaging, sharing photographs, commenting on things, on brands. So it was interesting to see how they were using it. And then it changed, of course, about 5 different segments we saw of demographics of people and how they were using it as well. So one thing which was really interesting to us to be able to consult better with the brands that we work with is, depending on who your consumer is, your qualified consumer, you need to be thinking about this. Are they Uber mobile? Are they at home? Are they a big brand loyalist? How much time they have? Are they on the move? And what other channels they're using as well. So that was super informative for us, and we were really happy. That's why we're having the event on the 20th of November. We're just going to publish the study, but we think it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I know you can't tell us everything, but I'm really intrigued by this idea of the segmentation, because when you have a user base of 1 billion, the real interest comes when you can start slicing and dicing. That is not a homogenous group of people. So you talk about the C-suite business traveler. Can you just give us some snippets of who some of these other high net worth segments are that people might be thinking about as they use Facebook?
Sure. There's another suite which we're calling for the moment Facebook Lite, but they're slightly older demographics.
Facebook Lite.
We're calling them Facebook Lite because they dip in and out of lots of different networks, and they're slightly older demographic, generally retired, and they're using social networks to keep in touch with families, friends that they may want to reconnect with, grandchildren, and what we see is the influence their family have on their choices. So we did a lot of qualitative deep dives, and we did some interviews with these people as well. And the people that you wouldn't think that brands resonate with were really, really resonating with them, but through the eyes and the lens of maybe their grandchildren that are at university or their daughters, and they're influenced back by them in terms of their decisions and their purchase behavior as well. So that was.
Do you have an example of that? So how does that work in practice?
So, well, there was one lady that was interviewed, and she was saying, I don't really notice advertising, I don't notice brands on Facebook. And I was very surprised when my daughter posted a handbag that she bought on Facebook that day, because I didn't think she was going to buy that Michael Kors handbag. I thought she was going to buy the other one, and there she was talking about brands.
Right.
In a very different way. It wasn't her clicking on an ad,
right.
But she'd been influenced. She saw those product choices. So some of the qualitative interviews are quite interesting from that point of view. Or there's another segment which are very much the content originators. They are the people that are finding those shares, like they're crazy pinners. They're bloggers as well. They're the ones that are influenced. They kind of almost start the ripple effect.
They're the opinion leaders.
Very much so, and very mobile, and they use several different devices, different channels, and they feed a lot through Facebook, using their feed as the mainstream in terms of distribution. And although they're very open, they keep their personal identity very, 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 very tight, locked down. Their phone numbers are not there or anything like that. So that's a very different type of segment, and they're very influential because their spheres of friendships, whether they're people they went to university with, people they work with, or people they're very close to, find their opinion on things almost to be the word, or they're the most influential in terms of the group.
I guess it's a natural thing, for all of us, and I think the research probably supports this thesis, which is that actually most of us pay most attention to what's in the feed, right? So all of that stuff happening extraneously, whether that's on Facebook or Twitter or a website, what we care about is in that central feed.
The feed is key. So 47% of all comments on Facebook happen in feed.
Right.
62% of all liking happens in feed. Now, if you look at our mobile stats, we're 1 billion users, 600 million of those are mobile users. That's predominantly shifting towards mobile.
Right.
So.
And the mobile is all about the feed.
Yeah, it's all about the feed.
Yeah.
So that's the most important thing for us as a company. Hence, when we had our first quarterly earnings and our mobile or revenue wasn't where Wall Street wanted to be, created that disappointment in terms of how we were doing. This time round, obviously, things are different. We're monetizing mobile very well, and we see that very much as the future of how people are going to continue to engage in the platform.
Let's talk about mobile for a moment, because I think this is another a really important topic, right? So, when Facebook makes the acquisition of Instagram, which was a mobile first and frankly mobile only social network.
Yes.
And Facebook didn't start that way, but clearly if 60% of the users are using Facebook on mobile, it's inevitable that we're going to continue to see that shift.
Yeah.
How should brands be thinking about, and first tell us about Facebook as it thinks about mobile, and then the implication that has for brands who are trying to use Facebook.
Okay. So 75% of the world's population has a mobile phone. In the next 2 years, there will be more devices than people for sure. The next billion people coming onto the web will be coming on via a phone that will have never, experienced the internet on a desktop.
Right.
So, full stop, mobile is critical for any business.
Right.
It's very critical for our business because if you think about the nature of Facebook's very much an identity platform. People are who they say they are. Mobile is a very personal space. It's where your friends are. You're a phone call away, a tweet away, a click away, a message away from your nearest and dearest. Mobile is important in terms, and Instagram thing is important as well because again, it's a mobile-only social network. The most prolific action on Facebook is the sharing of pictures and photographs. It is the most prolific action. Instagram is a beautiful photography product, and it's mobile and it's social. And we believe that bringing Instagram and into the Facebook family is the right thing for Facebook and the users. They want to. By their usage, they're telling us they want more. They want more experiences around pictures. Right. The picture functionality on Facebook up until about 6 months ago was pretty bad.
Yeah.
You mean you couldn't red eye reduce, you couldn't put a filter on there, you couldn't, if you wanted to check in somewhere and take a photograph, you had to go through a whole, into your camera. It wasn't a great experience. The only thing that you could do is tag and share.
Yeah.
Which no other feature that we had because we didn't have the network that we had.
Right.
Bring something like Instagram on top of that, and you have that beautiful quality of pictures that our users really, really want to share.
Okay.
And it's social. It's on the biggest, obviously, social, most connected network in the world.
Okay. Let's make all of this a little bit more concrete. The other myth that I think exists in the world of fashion and luxury is that the only great innovator in the space of social media and fashion is Burberry, right? So, without mentioning Burberry for the moment, because we all know Burberry's doing great things, I'm really interested to hear examples, concrete, real examples with real ROI, with real impact for high-end fashion and luxury businesses that have effectively used Facebook as a platform to achieve business objectives.
Okay, so I know we said not to talk about Burberry, but Burberry, they are the best example. I'll give you some more examples. Early days, I think they're the pioneer. They were the first to do it. Right. They're still doing it. But there are some brands following suit in some really, really interesting things right now. More recently, and in the last couple of months, both Cartier and Tiffany have made great strides in the social space. So Cartier a couple of months ago with the launch of the l'Odyssée de Cartier, and then more recently...
Does everyone know what the l'Odyssée de Cartier is? So maybe you should explain that, yeah.
It was a beautiful film that they'd made celebrating the Odyssey of Cartier. I'm sure all of you saw the viral film. It was really, really beautiful. But what they did first was they seeded it out to their fans on Facebook, and they did it in installments, almost taking people on a journey.
Right.
And they did that via publishing via their page, but also using sponsored stories to amplify that, right, to the friends of the fans they already had. Right? So if you think about it, the average person on Facebook has about 130 to 150 friends, much higher than in some countries like the UK, but in general across the globe. If they can get their fans to connect and share with that, it has the potential to reach 130 of their friends. So really make things go viral. And they do that very, very successfully.
So, but when you say successfully, I mean, we all understand the ability to use social media to broadcast content and share content.
Yeah.
But what, for a brand like Cartier, how do they justify that and measure that from an ROI perspective? Because that film that they created, that was not a cheap film, right? That was a very expensive exercise. It had kind of cinematic qualities to it.
Yeah.
So, when you're working with these brands to help them justify the investments they're making in this kind of stuff, how do what do they do?
So it depends on how you're talking about ROI, right, and what you want to get from something. For them, it was about awareness and share of voice. So that's how they were measuring the return on their investment there. We're talking about ROI as a return on investment for dollars.
Yeah.
I think the best example that's not Burberry that I can think of that's relevant for this audience would be ASOS.
Okay.
So what they did was they ran a 2-week campaign. It was a sale. It was a sale for their Facebook fans initially. So the idea was to use the loyalty that they built up. So they spent a period of time acquiring fans on Facebook, qualified audience. And they said, okay, let's see how these people interact with us. If we give them something, will they buy? Will they share? What will they do? So they created a sale, an online sale for these customers, and you can invite a friend to get into the sale with you. The more friends you invited into the sale, the earlier you got into the sale. So you got into the sale.
So there's this kind of gamification aspect.
Exactly. So what they did was they ran this for 2 weeks. They ran it exclusively on Facebook, and what they saw was really interesting. First of all, they had their biggest day of trading ever on the second week of the campaign because it had built enough momentum from the friends that people were inviting.
And how much of that trading was driven by this campaign?
What was only on Facebook.
Okay.
So they attribute the success to it being on Facebook.
Okay.
It starts also on a Sunday as well. Sunday is the busiest day of Facebook, and for some online retailers can be the busiest day of trading as well. So very smartly done there. They had a fan growth during that period of 130%. And the ROI that they saw was we measured this with them, so we got ComScore to come in and measure this and track the campaign. There's a 67% increase in intent to purchase from their consumers, and they had their biggest day of trading as well. So they've gone on the record to say that's the biggest ROI they've ever had from an online campaign in that period.
Admittedly, ASOS doesn't really fall at the high end of the fashion scale. Another example that you and I had discussed briefly at one point that I found really interesting was about Tiffany and how they were engaging at particular moments in people's lives. And to me, this was a really interesting thing because, as you say, Facebook is this really personal platform.
Yeah.
I think that the audience here would really benefit to hear more about how that worked.
So we haven't been working with them that long actually, and they kind of came to us and there's questions like, is Facebook the right environment for what we're trying to do?
Yeah.
Are our customers really on there? And we said, who are your customers? They're people who have life moments. They're getting engaged, they're getting married, they're having children, they're graduating. If you're going to celebrate any life moment, Facebook's a platform where people celebrate that. People celebrate birthdays, engagements, weddings.
The thing I notice is that the thing that gets the most likes on Facebook is babies, engagements, and weddings. I mean, you almost feel like compelled that you have to like it. If you don't, you're violating some kind of social contract.
And kittens.
And kittens. Okay.
What we did is we helped them devise a strategy around key moments, and obviously we have, I would say, the best targeting tools there are out there. So we know when these key moments are happening in people's lives. We can tell when people are having babies, when they're getting married, when they're getting engaged, when someone is graduating, for them to be able to deliver the right message at the right time to the audience or to the friends of those people who may be having a baby or who may be getting married as well. So they've chose to deliver their strategy around key moments in people's lives.
We're almost out of time. I just wanted to ask one last question, which is, we've talked a lot about what people are doing right.
Yeah.
And I know you probably don't want to name names, which is personally fine with me, but can you give me the examples of like the worst things that you see fashion and luxury brands do on Facebook? What are the biggest mistakes that that some of these brands are making?
Yeah, sure. Happy to. I'm not going to name names, but I have a few pet peeves.
Okay.
Just randomly collecting fans.
Yeah.
And they get into this fan war with whoever's got the biggest number of fans. Like everybody was chasing Burberry. And they made, honestly, lots of investment in chasing the wrong type of people. Is grow a qualified fan base. Look at who your customers are. And we can find those people on Facebook. We have the most accurate targeting tools are. We are 90, according to Nielsen online campaign ratings, which are basically the body that looks at the standard of accuracy of targeting, we are 98% accurate. The industry is 70% accurate. Right? Use the tools and find the right people. Don't just collect fans to get into a race.
So how do I use the tools to find the right people?
It's a targeting tool. To track someone, when you're delivering them an ad, don't just deliver it to anybody. Deliver to if your customer is a 35 to 54-year-old woman that lives in New York, that reads the Financial Times, that is a CEO, that has children and reads Vogue, target her.
And,
you can
and
do
by
that.
the way, Facebook has all of that data.
Yeah.
What else are mistakes that you see brands? So that was pet peeve one.
The second thing is I call the bowling ball analogy, which is like traditional marketing. It's like taking a bowling ball and just like rolling it down the alleyway to see how many people you can hit as possible. Like just random posts about, sometimes some brands it's like War and Pieces in your newsfeed, like many lightweight interactions, like be relevant to people. Don't post the same thing that you post everywhere else.
Right.
People have short attention spans. They're in their newsfeed, it's small space, they're generally on their phone. Give them a beautiful image with a call to action, something they can engage with. Don't give them, the thesis.
Well, if there's one industry that has beautiful images and that can create a call to action, it's our industry.
Sure.
So thank you very much,
You're
Tracy,
welcome.
and thanks to all of you.